Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand off the Thunder who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out.
All right, welcome to the Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
this podcast.
As always, we are your host Blake and my brother
Brooks.
Okay. So, eventful weekend.
I just want to say real quick to subscribe and like to the show if you like what we're doing here. We are posting every week. This football season, we're having a good time doing it, even though the on-field product hasn't been what we want it to be. We're going to stick with it because we're Husker fans through and through, just like all y'all, if y'all are finding this channel. So go ahead and give us a subscribe and a like if you like what we're doing. Also follow us on Twitter at CHusker Corner and find our Instagram, Cornhusker Corner. Got the baggage out of the way.
Yeah,
just wanted to get that out of the way right off the bat.
Yeah. You have to get your money somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, but so eventful weekend. You were at the game, which is why this is the recap portion of this podcast is a little delayed. So let's just go through this first before we get into the actual game. Sights and sounds from the weekend. Pre-game,
they looked really big. I'm talking about Illinois, by the way. That was just the first thing that struck me. They looked really big. They looked very, very just well organized, like a machine. I knew it was going to be have to be our best effort just based on the warm-ups. I was like, that's just what I came from the warm-up saying. I was like, this is gonna have to be our best effort. This is a legitimate team that Brett Bielema's got this year. The other thing I wanted to mention was they had it was Navy SEALs or Air Force guy. I don't know. I think Navy SEALs or something like that. Parachuting in before the game. Yeah. I bet it was cool to see on TV, but man, when you were there, it was very cool. I gotta say. It was a fun environment. It was actually a fun environment.
It's always fun going to see games in Lincoln. I mean, you've seen two this year, and they're probably the two games that you wouldn't want to go see live.
Yes,
all year.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, I'm gonna look back at the end of this year and say, damn, I went to probably our two most depressing games all year, maybe besides Georgia Southern, but at least Georgia Southern was back and forth for the whole game.
At least you had a lot of points being scored.
Yeah, but it was still Georgia Southern, and everybody knows that in the crowd, so nobody was happy at that game, guaranteed.
No, for sure.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention quick, just about the sights and sounds. Dylan Raiola walked right by us, right by us. Big guy, looks like Patrick Mahomes. I was like, dang, he literally looks like same hair and everything. I was like, dang, he literally looks like Patrick Mahomes.
Did you ask him about the Patrick price?
No. No. And then his little brother was there as well, and his little brother looks just like him, just a couple of years younger, basically. So lots of recruits there, lots of buzz in the stadium before the game. And, for what the game was, I thought the crowd was engaged. It's just very hard I heard Husker fans say this, people especially who have insulated themselves and maybe only go to Husker games or only watch Husker football. I don't know, but I've heard people say, with the fans, they just weren't there today, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, guys, let's please put this in perspective, please. Like, the game kicks off and we're a 3-4 team that barely has a shot at the West and has looked terrible in 4 out of our 7 games so far this year, have a coaching change and lots of uncertainty in the future, and the stadium's full to begin the game. The stadium's full. And there just wasn't a whole lot to cheer at. I mean, the first 2 quarters, there was some good moments. I mean, our defense came to play. Say that right off the bat. Our defense came to play, but the loudest moment in the stadium for the game was without a doubt Travis Vokalek's touchdown. Yeah, it blew the top off the place for sure.
Yeah. So let me just get into that. So, thanks for your insight. But you're right about the fans. I mean, they were there. If the game would have kept progressing how it was before Casey's injury, probably would have stayed that level. But you could definitely see it and feel it, and it does stink that the offense just decided to go out and lay an egg. And it was an offense of like laying an egg, even with Casey in there. And I'll get into some of the things that I was able to take from that. But our defense, they didn't score a touchdown in the second half. They did not score a touchdown in the second half.
Our defense, our offense. I know.
No. Illinois didn't score a touchdown the entire second half.
They did. We just gave them turnovers. Oh no, wait, you're right, because we went into halftime 20-9.
20-9, and
yeah, they only got
to 9. Yeah, 2 field goals.
And there were a couple. I mean, we got 2 sacks on the day. 2 sacks on the day. We held a largely running outfit in Illinois to 188 yards, which
is not bad.
Which sounds like a lot, but that was with everybody. And
it's not bad. And
breakout big runs. Chase Brown was only held to 144 yards. I mean,
on 30 plus carries.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
It's a lot. It was a lot.
Our defense played good. I'm just going to say it. Our defense played good.
They played definitely good enough to win that game.
No doubt about it. Our offense put them in bad position, man.
They really did a couple times, especially on that first touchdown there. Not the first touchdown. The second one.
Yeah, the second one.
They got put in a bad position there, but let's get into something that I saw on the offense that was the clearest it's been this game, because sometimes when you're watching the game, you can't tell what the offense is trying to do scheme wise, because the defense is either doing a good job or you just can't tell if there was a game plan, what they were trying to do. You could tell in this game more than any other game this season that Whipple had the right game plan to just throttle them.
Yes.
And our guys could have done it. They just did not execute at all. Every single time it looked like, there he is. Didn't happen. And that happened before Casey went out too.
There were 2 plays. That was a 3-play sequence where there was I don't remember the first play, but the second one was a Ramir drop. And then the third one, Casey gets hit and hurt. And on that play, Marcus Washington was streaking down the field.
Yes.
And if he was able to follow through, he would have been wide open.
Yep.
The safety had totally bit, and he read it. But the problem was that was probably the one play all day that the offensive line didn't quite give Casey enough time. And that was the other thing I took away from the offense was like, man, if you had said our offense played terrible on Illinois, I would have said, man, our offensive line must have played terrible. They really didn't play that bad. They weren't awful. They were very serviceable that day.
Our QB play, even when Casey was in, he was missing throws. He was floating the ball a lot. It wasn't coming out of his hands with a lot of oomph behind it. He was trying to force it to Trey a little too much. Especially in that first pick on that first drive when we were in field goal range. It was probably a miscommunication, but even so, just throw it out of bounds. Run. Yeah, he had a good amount of space too. So I don't know.
Yeah, because a lot has been made about Chuba coming in and I believe we got the ball on a fumble inside the 35-yard line. Chuba was the quarterback at the time, and he third down, runs across the field, throws across his body. Rule number 1, Pee Wee football, and he throws a pick. And in that situation, I've heard it said, I believe even Mickey is like, we got to take the points there. And I agree with them, but yeah, you're making a great point. Casey had one of those, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and Casey's the veteran in this room. He's supposed to really know that you got to take those points, especially in a Big Ten game. Look, if we were playing a Big 12 game, I might understand sort of the Frostian aggression, no matter what. Mindset of we just got to go for the kill and go for the touchdown every time, because Big 12 games, a lot of them 48-45, high scoring shootouts, a lot of them. But we're in the Big Ten, and in the Big Ten, sometimes one week you might have, a high scoring game because the matchup was that way. But the next week you might have a 13-12 defensive battle with a team you weren't expecting to have a really good defense that does. I mean, and Illinois did have a good defense. We were expecting them to. So we knew that every point was going to matter in this game, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's coaching or what.
No.
But
see, it was just execution, especially from the quarterback position that lost us this game. Because like you said, you could see the plays develop. They had the right stuff called. They had the right stuff called a lot. And it just, like the Ramir right out of the backfield, the throw was a little behind him. That dude is flying. It's a not an impossible catch. It was a little bit more difficult catch, especially for a guy that hasn't been in a lot. But
it was thrown behind him.
It was thrown behind him. But you got to make that play. He had one guy to beat, and then he's in the end zone. Because in the open field, he has that breakaway speed. So,
did he use it at the right time? Arguably not. I mean, like on a route like that, like you need to break open free, and you don't want to tell somebody don't run as fast as you can. But there are certain routes that like don't run as fast as you can. Like on a wheel route, or not on a wheel route. Sorry, on a bubble, like on a bubble screen, you can get vertical much too quick on a bubble screen. I know this isn't the same thing, but live being there, a lot of people were like, "Damn, he was running too fast." That's kind of what I heard a lot of people saying.
But it was fun. It was funny because if you watch it back on TV, I think he was expecting just to run past the guy before the ball even came to him. And then then he looked back and the ball was there because he would have flown probably right past that guy. And so he's like, "Oh, maybe I can just run past this guy before I get the ball."
It's just a what could have been, man. Because if that play is executed, that's Ramir's moment. There it is, finally, Ramir's moment.
Yeah, there's that. And there was actually a Chuba play too, where he just threw a terrible ball to Trey. Should have been pass interference, and it wasn't.
It was thrown like behind him and high.
Behind him, high to the sideline. If he let him anywhere sort of the middle, and to his credit, he actually got it down that far, but he didn't get it anywhere near accurate. Like you throw that ball to not like very middle of the field, but you lead him inside a little bit. He had him beat by a couple steps. Like it was a touchdown.
Trey had people beat all day. It was very frustrating to watch because even when the safety breaks with Trey, he still hasn't beat. It's pretty wild when you're actually there live and you're just watching Trey. Because I don't know much about being a quarterback, but I know about the deep ball, and with high coverage, you're reading the safety essentially because you got one-on-one on the outside. You're probably going to beat that guy, and if he doesn't have support, then it's wide open. So you're as a quarterback essentially. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're reading whether the safety breaks up or back. And
up,
even when
or to the sides, which
sure,
to do,
depending on the call, but for just a go ball. And so these safeties were breaking back with Trey, and Trey still had 2 or 3 steps on him.
Yeah,
it was, and they're all the way. They're 30 yards off the ball. I mean, and they were playing deep too. By the end of the game, they were playing 35 yards off the ball at safety. They were playing deep.
I mean, no, they didn't really even have to. We couldn't have a quarterback that couldn't complete a pass that wasn't a shuffle pass. Like, I think those are the only passes that Purdy was able to complete. And like, I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later, I think. What else do you have about the game before we go into specific situations?
From the outset, I guess the defensive line played well. I mean, they did. The defense just overall played pretty well. They had a couple of breakdowns here and there.
Tackled well for the most part.
So it's funny because live you just don't see everything, right? So I've had to watch the game back a couple times, and I just see so much more on TV. You just do. You see other things while you're there, like the Trey thing, like the safeties breaking with Trey. I wouldn't have seen that on TV. But the first touchdown, at first when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's a loaf. Oh God," you know what I mean? Like, like they just gave up. And then when I was thinking about it, I saw the replay on the big screen. I was like, "Oh, that was a pick play or something. It was a pick play." And then I watched it back again. Oh, rub route, not pick play. Rub route difference. Yeah. And they ran into each other. That's by design on the offensive part. So you got to give that to them, but we got to watch out for that. Just like I said, on the defensive side, just a couple of breakdowns, but nothing big that you could point out. I thought Gifford's sack was like savage. That was also one of the loudest moments in the stadium. I thought Garrett Nelson's sack came at a great time. They had a couple 3-and-outs that gave us a lot of life. Our offense just never capitalized on it.
Yeah.
And like we've said, it's almost like, you can point out certain things about people's performances. I thought Chancellor Brewington played a pretty good game. He had that one really good catch out of the backfield. But it's really mostly a quarterback conversation this game, because that largely is the cause of the issue. So Casey gets hurt in the late second quarter on a third down, and in the stadium he stayed on the field and was kind of holding his arm, just like had his arm down, was just kind of holding his arm. Went right into the medical tent, and I hardly saw him for the whole rest of the game. So I guess he went into the locker room and stayed.
He went to the locker room. He came back out. But yeah, it looked on TV like a little bit of nothing, but it was in the elbow, not his hand. But it kind of looked how he was holding it, that it was in his hand. Apparently, it's a nerve issue, which makes sense of how he was holding it and stuff. So it just got hit in that right way, in that right spot.
Here's sort of my thoughts on the situation. I think that all three of our quarterbacks have to adapt their play style because of the way our offensive line plays. And Casey has started to sort of get used to that a little bit. He's at least releasing the ball on time in most cases. When Chuba comes in, he's a thrower and he's a high school guy. I don't know. First thing I want to say is, man, we said this before. We don't want to lose Casey. Casey is the guy. And it's more apparent now than ever that, especially for this offense, Casey is the guy. I think maybe if we're running Frost's offense, there is a serious case for Smothers out of all these guys. But in this offense, Casey is the guy. And if he goes down, man, there's a big drop off, because if Chuba is the thrower out of those two, oh man, we are in trouble. Here's
the thing. Here's the thing though. Like, if you're looking at Chuba, we have a good amount of film on him now. It wasn't like he came in a bad situation. He got some good, solid looking, what should have been solid looking drives. He was getting good, meaty portions of the game to show what he could do. He can't throw the ball. He can't. His footwork is awful. He's an athletic guy. He makes bonehead decisions. Those are two things that quarterback needs to do. They need to be able to throw the ball, and they need to be able to make good decisions. And if you can't do that, you can't play quarterback.
100%.
What about we talked about Smothers a little bit. What about Harburg?
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's a different
really
conversation.
He has a really good arm. Like, what? Like, you sat there and you see this guy. You see him in practice. He probably is a really good practice player. That's the only thing that I can think of. He's a really good practice player.
Well, we have one game, so I'm not ready to sell him down the river yet, but I agree. I mean, he looked like a deer in headlights out there. I've said this before. Look, we've talked about this. Chuba as a self-proclaimed gunslinger. And when a quarterback says, "I'm a gunslinger," it means that they've been yelled at for making stupid throws before. And so to justify it in their own mind, they go, "Oh, I'm a gunslinger."
You know what gunslingers can do? They can shoot. He can't shoot.
Yeah.
You have to be able to throw the ball. He can't. He can't.
Well,
you could have made those throws. Some of those throws were just awful. Who are you throwing it to?
Yeah. Here's the thing, man. Like, one thing about Adrian Martinez, I'll actually say, is Adrian Martinez was a terrible thrower of dump off routes, of tiny little. He was so bad at that. And one thing about Casey is it's almost the opposite. Casey's pretty automatic when it comes to the short to intermediate throws. Chuba, I feel like, is the type of quarterback that has to find his rhythm. and he might be decent at intermediate to long balls, but you got to get your rhythm before you get there. And if you suck at short throws, and if you look like a deer in headlights out there, it's tough to get your rhythm at all. My thoughts are this, regardless of whether this guy can do it or not at some point, he's doesn't look like he's ready to right now. And
No.
I really think that the offense should just, if they're really going to be bold and if they're really going to try to win us games, we need to transition to a bit more of a running offense, put Logan Smothers in there, get some of the short intermediate passing game going with RPOs and with the read option and with all that stuff.
And listen, and you know me, and I'm very, very kind when it comes to these kids and these players. I give them all like benefit of the doubt. I don't really believe in going, well, put this guy in. Just as a fan, you don't know. You really don't. I know enough about the quarterback position, and I've seen enough from Chuba that if we want to win another game this season, he can't be the starting quarterback if Casey can't go in. It has to be Smothers. We've had enough film on Smothers to know that he can compete. It doesn't matter if he can win games. Can he make these throws? That doesn't matter. He can compete. Okay?
I think he can lead better as well. Because the thing about Smothers is even the one drive he went in there, he just seems much more confident in himself.
Yeah.
And when your quarterback's confident, that's the thing about Casey is Casey's number one attribute for this team is his confidence and his poise. No doubt about it, because we'll be deep into games down and Casey's still poised trying to score for us. No problem. We're still there. What's next? What's next? What's next? And that's the type of guy you need to have at quarterback. And I see more of that in Logan than I do in Chuba, no doubt about it.
Listen, that series he went in, he had one really great run and a terrible call on third down. That was awful. That was awful.
He almost got that first down too on the side run. Almost so close. I thought he did live. You know how it is watching a game live.
If he would have stretched the ball out, it was literally that close. But see, I don't think he's had a really poor, this is, picking out the gems because he goes in there to run. But I don't think he's had a run where I'm just thinking, oh, he shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he's going in there to run the ball, so that's a little unfair. But he's athletic. I think he's a competitor. I think he can make the throws that we need with our wide receiving core. And having him back there, and we've said this before, something that Casey doesn't have that can open up Whipple's offense more than anything is to have a running quarterback. Mm-hmm. It just can. With our offensive line, that has to happen. Mm-hmm. And Casey's proved that he can run the ball when he needs to, but not basing plays off of it. With Logan, you have that. You have even more, but I think he can do the things that Casey was doing, maybe not as well. But I think he can be serviceable in that. And then you have another dimension. It's not like you're taking half the offense away. You're replacing it with something else. And I think that they can do that Chuba just doesn't have. He just doesn't have it.
And also, there's also the element of we only have 4 games left. And it's not like Logan has no tools throwing wise in the cupboard. He has tools. So get what you can get with him through the air, and you'll surprise people. You will, because the perception right now is that Logan is a running quarterback. When he comes in, he's going to run the read option and run QB draws and bootlegs and stuff like that. But he can throw the ball. He's not a bad thrower at all. He doesn't have as strong of an arm as the rest of our quarterback room. I don't think he has as strong of an arm. I don't think he throws it with as much zip, but he can get the ball there. And look, you run a couple of run plays. They're biting on it. And then all of a sudden, you do what you were doing before, Trey running down the seam. Logan can make that pass too. You know what I mean? He's not bad. Throw the ball up and let Trey run under it.
Yeah, and I just think he's a gamer. I think he's a
I agree with you.
He's a competitor. And if you want to, for the team deserves to go to a bowl. You deserve to put your team in the best position. Just coaching decisions. I don't think that's Chuba. You might love the kid. He's probably a great kid. I don't think he's that guy right now. Give him a whole offseason being the starter, going in with that mindset. Maybe it's different. And I say that with the biggest eye roll I can, because I haven't gone so far down on a player after watching them play since now. maybe that's different. But right now, you have to go with Logan. And if they don't, I will have a very tough time watching the rest of the season just because of that coaching decision. Because I know what
depending
Logan
on
is.
how it plays out, obviously. I mean, you never know. Somebody finds their stride and then they look completely different, but that rarely happens, to be honest. Usually you see whispers and elements of somebody's skill before they reach their peak, right? And Logan, we've seen that. That's kind of why I'm there with you. And I also think that it also speaks volumes that Logan's still here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's had plenty of opportunities to transfer. He's a highly touted 4-star who could have gone into an offense that is much more situated for his talents. Because at this point, the Nebraska offense has transitioned to something where it's harder for him to win the starting job in. And he's still here. To me, that says a lot about his character. Because he wants to stick it out and see what he can make of this season at the very least. I think with the whole Casey situation, it sounds like one of two things. He's either seriously like he's out for the season, or he's going to be touch and go for the rest of the season, and he's probably not going to play this week, but they're going to like leave it ambiguous so that nobody knows, type thing.
Yeah.
So I really do hope that Logan gets the nod, and I hope he plays really well. And I hope that even when Casey does come back, that we're still at a rotational capacity with Logan, that he plays well enough to warrant that.
Yeah.
So
because right now, throw all the stops. These kids deserve to go to a bowl game. Try to get them there with some coaching decisions that we know that we can with personnel, because we have some really great athletes that are riding pine, you know, and the more you have on the field, the better. So I think that'll be it for that. But anything else for the QB thing?
Man, not really. But you know, it's just a crappy situation all around. I told Dad this. I was like, I just don't know whether to feel happy about this game or to feel frustrated about it. Probably a little bit of both, because going into this game, the consensus was this is a running team. Illinois is a running team. If we can stop the run, then we can give our offense some opportunities to beat them deep, which is what we're supposedly specialized at, right? And you know, it was frustrating because we did largely stop the run. We did a really good job at that. They didn't break any big runs. I mean, as far as touchdown,
not game breaking ones,
game breaking runs. And it ended up being where something that was our strength ended up showing itself as a weakness, and something that was supposedly a weakness ended up showing itself as a strength. So it's like, first thing I feel is like, okay, good, they're improving in in certain aspects of as a team, especially defensively, they're improving, and that is encouraging. There is something to build off of here in that aspect. But a team that has a different strength and weakness every week is probably not a very good team.
No,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like we have a different strength and weakness every single week. We're just so spotty.
Like this week, our offense and defense could be playing lights out, and we give up a couple special teams plays.
Yeah. Knock on wood, but you're totally right. So I feel a little bit of encouragement, partly for what I explained, but also a little bit of frustration, and that's kind of how I summarized the Illinois game.
Yep. No, it's definitely frustrating because it was there and we could have done it. But
Yep.
Anyway,
before
let's
we get
move
into
on.
the Minnesota game, I want to give you all a reminder to go ahead and subscribe and like to our page. We enjoy you guys' company. We enjoy each other's company. We enjoy talking about Nebraska football. So give us a subscribe and go ahead and smash that like button. Also follow us on Twitter at Husker Corner, and find our Instagram, Cornhusker Corner. There it is. So now it is time, brother. Mohammed Ibrahim.
No.
Oh. Now it is time for that. Okay.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of news.
A little bit of news. Report came out about what, like
Psyop.
an hour ago.
Psyop came out.
Whatever.
I'll explain, but that's essentially what this is.
Yeah. Like Mickey's name apparently has been brought up in ties to being considered for the Arizona State head coaching vacancy.
Tis
So
the season, brother. Tis the season.
it is.
We are getting our leaks, and so I think this is a couple things.
Yeah.
So he's tied to the Arizona job. His management. It was leaked that his management had been contacted about the Arizona job. It was leaked. Those are the key phrases in that. It was leaked. So that's why I call it a psyop, which is a hilarious and a bit of a dramatic term to call it. But essentially what this is a tactical warfare on Mickey's management's part. I mean, they're trying to get him the best situation they can possibly get him. And the way that they need to do that now, as the situation is progressing at Nebraska, is to put pressure on Nebraska and on Trev. And what else puts pressure than you hearing, oh, Arizona State's contacting Mickey's management, blah, 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 blah. Puts pressure on you to get something together if you want to keep him. And so that's what this is, in my opinion. I think it's real. I think he would go there. And matter of fact, I think it'd be a pretty decent little fit. But
for a Nebraska fan's perspective, the only thing that's keeping us from having another bad year and having a bunch of attrition when we do get a new head coach, if that's not Mickey, is for Mickey to stay here under the terms that he already negotiated. If Mickey leaves, it would have to be a really great hire, like the Urban Meyer type hire, to not be bad next year too. Because he would take a lot of guys with him, I think.
Yes.
Because the players love him. Now, if they can get 3 more wins, I think he's our head coach. I really do. Not for a big contract year-wise. Probably like a 2 or 3 year. Like,
no, they won't do that. They're going to do a 5-year. No, they won't. That'd be disrespectful, to be honest. Yeah. Like it's just a courtesy thing. You're going to get a 5-year contract. And that's not from me, by the way. I just consume way too much media, and I've heard people who know more than me
you're
talk
right.
about that.
His buyout probably wouldn't be very, very big, though.
That's where it would be. It would be a contract that's structured around incentives, with a low buyout but a long year span. So it would probably be a 5-year contract. I'd probably say $5 million a year base at least. But he's going to get a lot of incentives. So if he wins the conference, if he wins the Natty, goes to the playoffs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's probably what his contract would look like. Which, I mean, in my humble opinion, what's feeling most likely right now, as far as like coaching carousel stuff, and the conversation's heating back up a little bit because we're only 3 or 4 weeks away from potential announcement. Not potential, it's gonna happen in 3 or 4 weeks. And what's feeling likely to me right now is Aranda. That is what is feeling very likely to me right now is we're gonna go scoop up Aranda. Aranda has so many connections with our staff and with the Big Ten. He is a defensive minded coach that has had 7 number 1 defenses at different teams. I mean, this guy is totally legit. He knows how to coach defense, and he knows the Big Ten. And I think if you're Mickey and if you're Bill Bush, you look at that and you say, well, I've worked with Aranda before. Let's see what we can do. And you talk to Aranda, and Aranda talks to Mickey and talks to Trev, and Mickey would probably get a $1.2 million assistant coach contract where he's the wide receiver coach and associate head coach again, and leader of recruiting, which would be, honestly, in my opinion, if it's not going to be Mickey as the head coach, that would be the number 1 choice right there. Because like you said, Mickey has a lot of players he's brought here, and you need to keep him here, or else a lot of those players are going to leave.
But I'm not completely sold on Aranda. As Baylor kind of hasn't completely imploded, but they're not what they looked like the first couple of weeks. They were good last year.
They've been competitive in every game. I mean, they've been competitive in every game.
It's also the Big 12, which is horrible. Look at the past couple of years. They've been horrible, right?
Right. Okay.
In Kansas State just bushwhacked what was the front running team. They held them scoreless. So that's the Big 12.
I agree, but my point is, if you're going to argue for Mickey as the head coach, then Aranda is a no-brainer. like a complete no-brainer, especially if you're keeping Mickey on with a. I mean, that is like.
But if you're putting your head coach like decision because of a wide receiver coach,
you're not. It's just a package. It's part of it. Dave Aranda would be a candidate with or without Mickey.
Yeah, okay, but I don't think that he's the only coach that we hire.
No, but that's just my personal. That's what feels likely to me. It just feels like it's moving in that direction. I agree with you. If Mickey gets us to a bowl game, it's probably Mickey, and it's probably a structured contract like we described. But I'm gonna be honest with you, man. With our quarterback situation, like we just talked about, and with all that stuff, that feels highly unlikely. And Mickey is a pragmatic person.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey wins 1 out of the next 4 games, he's not going to get the job. If he wins 2 out of the next 4 games, it's a consideration. 3, he'll probably get the job. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty much the line. And he knows that. Okay. He knows that. And my point being, if he's only wins 1 out of the next 4 games, he probably won't get looked at for other head coaching jobs realistically either, to be honest with you.
No.
A lot of places will have a hard time justifying somebody who has only been a position coach and just only won 4 games. You know, it's just, it would be a hard justification. And Mickey knows that. So he's a pragmatic person. If he only wins 1 of the next 4 games, Dave Aranda, someone like that, probably would be the choice. Leipold also would probably keep Mickey as well, because Leipold has a staff that has, well, I don't want to speak on this because I'm not 100% sure, but Leipold is a Nebraska guy. He's the other one. I feel like it would be a possibility if we kept Mickey, but there's not many people that I feel like it would be a possibility we kept Mickey. The most interesting thing to me would be if Mickey won 6 games, retools his staff, Coach O's our D-line coach next year, which honestly probably would happen. Yeah, I'm just being honest. It probably would happen.
And honestly, like, that's the thing about, like, I want him to win the next 3 games because he has been able to change the team a lot in just, off weeks, bye weeks. And, just the way that the coaching staff reacts to the media now, it's not like they're trying to keep a secret anymore.
Yep.
They're looking like they're having fun, even though, they've lost a couple now, but they're still looking like they're having fun, which I think is how you win games. But yeah, so
that's got to be part of it. They're looking like they're having fun, but also like Mickey just understands. You can tell he says he understands what it's going to take for Nebraska to become Nebraska again in its current situation. He came in with Vince Ginta, who was a former recruiting director at LSU and at Baylor, who was Aranda's recruiting director for his first year there. Hint, hint. He's our recruiting director now. Scott hired him. So Mickey and Vince basically retooled our entire recruiting department over the last 9 months. And there was a lot to fix. And he basically said as much without alluding to the specific things that he was fixing. But so Mickey knows the recruiting landscape. He knows what's going to take to recruit to Nebraska. You can't just be Calibraska. Oh, we're going to do Calibraska this year. Remember that? Oh yeah, we're just going to get a bunch of kids from California, and that's how we're going to survive. No. You have to somehow have a hand in multiple different areas. It can't just be coming from one. And also, he says things like, there was a Sports Illustrated article yesterday. He says things like if you're going to be Nebraska again, if you're going to wake the sleeping giant, you can't compete with Iowa and with Wisconsin and with Northwestern. You have to compete with Ohio State. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality. And people will say, but you have to beat Iowa and Northwestern and Wisconsin first. Well, guess what? If you build a team to beat Ohio State, you're gonna beat Iowa, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. I
get you. But let's row the boat over to the Minnesota game. So yeah, the Gophers are chucking into town, and I'm just not feeling good about it. There was a second at the Illinois game when we went up, and our team looked like they were fighting, and Illinois was on their heels, and I was like, ooh. And then we have Minnesota next week, and I think that we match up well on offense against their defense, and if we're stopping their run like that, maybe we can stop Abraham like that. I still think that second point. I think if our defense plays the way they did against the run, I think we have a shot. But our quarterback play needs to be better.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I
So
mean,
Minnesota, they're coming
yeah.
in. They got Mo Ibrahim, little bowling ball of a back who's been there
Yeah.
for 12 years. He's so good.
Yep.
He's really good, and he's a very specific type of runner, bowling ball type. If you watched football or played football, you know exactly what I mean. But it's a short and stocky runner who can clear their feet really easily. If you have them wrapped up in their legs, they'll just get right out of it pretty freaking easily. And Tanner Morgan is going to be healthy for this game, supposedly. And
so probably a little rusty.
So we'll see. He's also been there for like 12 years. Mickey said this the other day, and he's right. The Big Ten West teams and Big Ten teams in general, like a lot of them are just senior bound, really good teams because they just have a lot of old guys on them. And Minnesota's one of those teams. They have a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the row the boat, most inspiring coach in the universe, PJ Fleck.
Yeah.
So
Funny anecdote about him. So whenever you're watching football and like, he's on the sidelines with a headset on. Most of the time he has those sunglasses on. And then I saw him like in one of those Big Ten commercials and I was like, who is that? I was like, who the hell is that? And then like PJ Fleck showed up. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what he looks like without sunglasses and a headset on. I was flabbergasted by it. I didn't think that he looked like a little weasel. But I guess
his appearance
he
has changed quite a bit recently as well. Well, he had an accident, some sort of accident, and then he had to get plastic surgery. So
maybe that's what it was too.
Yeah. So he I don't know what kind of accident it was.
Too much cocaine.
He probably rode the boat a little too hard.
Yeah.
Sorry, that might have been a bad taste. It could be something bad, and I don't know about.
Oh, whatever.
But anyway, so he looks completely different than he did 5 years ago. And he had emerged in the last two. The other interesting little angle of this game is he has emerged in the last 2 weeks in some, I'll call them backwater channels, not just back channels, backwater channels, as he's talking to Trev. They're striking up a contract, blah, 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 blah. So that's another interesting aspect is at the very least, you can kind of say a name that has been mentioned for this Nebraska job is coming into Lincoln to play Nebraska. Sort of interesting.
No, it's interesting. And I think it's, if that holds any water, like if that's completely true, I really want him to knock off the row the boat crap. That is so annoying.
It won't work here, man.
It won't work here.
It won't work here.
You can't row the boat in a cornfield.
You can't bring your own brand into Nebraska. No, you can, like that's his brand. You know, you can't bring your own brand into Nebraska.
Yeah, the reason it works in Minnesota is like Minnesota didn't have one, right. So he could put that in there and it'd still be cringy, but it wouldn't be like abusive to the fan base.
If he wants to embrace day by day, throw the bones, all that stuff, in the way that he embraces row the boat, that's fine. That's totally fine. But it's got to be that. I'm not saying row the boat. I'm not saying row the boat. No. That will feel like a dystopian nightmaric future if row the boat is plastered all over the Nebraska locker room.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. It should be an interesting game. The kickoff's going to be at 11 a.m. in Lincoln. QB situation is up in the air, like we've talked about. That's one of the main keys to me, because if our defense truly did show improvement, then we should be able to hold them to non-game breaking runs. They'll get their runs, they'll get their carries, but hopefully we can hold them to non-game breaking runs. And if we can do that, all that has to happen is our quarterbacks have to play well. And if our quarterbacks play well, then boom.
And
I think we'll have a chance.
And if our quarterbacks play well and we score touchdowns more than them, then we win.
Then we win. It was funny. I kept hearing people say that at the game. All we got to do is stop them and score more points than them. I was like, you think?
Yeah. Hire them as head coach. They know.
They know. And it was kind of ironic, though. Don't you find the irony in this situation? How brash and how like it wasn't Whipple's fault. This past week wasn't Whipple's fault. We talked about it, but wasn't it ironic how just brash and bold he was in his press conference saying, so Mickey goes, well, toughness is the most important thing. Usually the most tough team wins. You got to be physically tough and you got to be physically dominant. And usually that team wins, blah, blah, blah. Whipple's then interviewed the next day. Well, Mickey said something about physical toughness and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, they don't score points for physical toughness. He's like, my job is to score points. He's like, sure, you got to be tough to score points, but my job is to score points. They don't score points for physical toughness. I just thought that was hilarious. And then fast forward to 4 days later, he can't score any points.
Not his fault though.
Not his fault, but it just was a little ironic.
Yeah,
I mean, he's funny. The quarterback's coach. It is a little bit his fault. Okay, it is a little bit his fault. He's got to get those guys prepared.
Fair.
This is college football. You can't.
If you don't have the talent, you can't fix somebody's brain.
Talent. I agree with you to an extent, but at the same time, it's been obvious to me, and they've even said it, that, well, our number one guys were getting all the reps. Okay. This is not the NFL. Okay. This is college football, and people get knocked out of the game all the time. If you have a quarterback room in college football, you have to have 3 guys ready going into the year at all times. That's just how it works. It's kind of like your running back room. It's not like the NFL where you can just have 2 or 3 backs. You have to have 5 backs in college. You have to. Because you're gonna get a couple of them hurt. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Minnesota game. What are your predictions?
I'm gonna come with the caveat of for our quarterback position, if Casey actually does heal up in time and he's even a little bit remotely healthy, I think we do pretty okay. I don't think he's going to, and I think we're gonna have to go with either Chuba or Logan. So if Chuba comes in, I think we score maybe 1 touchdown, and it has nothing to do with him. Or I think if Logan plays, we score at least 21 points. So I'm just gonna predict. I'm gonna predict 21-7 Minnesota.
21-7. Yeah, okay. My predictions are basically like this game is gonna. I mean, I'm not a smart guy, I'm not too smart, So my prediction are this game is pretty much gonna look a lot like last game, and our defense will probably play pretty well, enough to keep it from blowout. But our offense is gonna have a couple of dumb turnovers that give them position to take the lead and to maybe even at some point take a commanding lead. But I think it'll end up being a 28-17 win for Minnesota.
Yeah. All right.
And I think that with that 28-17 win, or what was your score prediction again?
21-7.
21-7 win for Minnesota. I think with either of those outcomes, the Mickey being head coach talk takes a significant halt for a little bit until we see anything.
Because if we don't win this week, we're not going to a bowl game.
Oh no, we're not beating Michigan.
We're not beating Michigan. I still think that because Wisconsin and Iowa Iowa put together a good offensive performance last week against a Northwestern team that has taken a complete nosedive. They look like a completely different team because they weren't playing Nebraska, and we make everybody look like Alabama.
Right. Well, I do think the one good thing is what I've kind of felt like during a lot of this coach search is like, damn, nothing definite is happening. You know what I mean? Where it's like no one coach outside of the program has really emerged as the clear-cut number one candidate. And Mickey hasn't. I mean, he's definitely done enough to make us have the conversation about him, but he's definitely not, cemented it yet at all. And going into this Illinois game, I knew that the conversation would slow down significantly if we lost against Illinois. And it has, but people are still talking about it. But if we lose this Minnesota game, that will pretty much be the death blow to the conversations about Mickey as head coach, unfortunately, in my opinion. Yeah. And I say unfortunately because I do think that regardless of this season, I think he'd be a pretty damn good head coach. Yeah. And if we're basing it off of who we think would just be a good coach, I think Mickey would have a good shot at it, but that's
Yeah.
not how this business works.
It is not. It is not. But that's going to be it for us today on the Cornhusker Corner. As mentioned previously, you can follow us on Twitter at Cornhusker_corner and on Instagram.
Seahusker.
Seahusker.
Yeah.
Then why does it say Cornhusker_corner there?
It says Seahusker_corner.
Oh my
At
gosh. You're right.
Seahusker_corner.
Oh yeah. Oh, my eyesight's terrible.
Blake is dyslexic.
Yeah, it looks. Yeah, no, for sure. And you follow us on Instagram at Cornhusker Corner. Like and subscribe to this channel. If you like what we do, we kind of like what we do sometimes, especially when we win. Less so when we lose. So this has been a little tough, but always remember.
Give us the outro music.
Okay. All right. Outro music incoming. Okay.
This podcast.